And now to D.C. and a question. What does it take to abruptly end a House hearing on arms control and U.S. assistance to Europe? Yesterday, it was a Republican congressman's refusal to recognize the first transgender member of Congress as a woman. Joining me now, NBC's Julie Sirkin on Capitol Hill and staff writer at The Atlantic and MSNBC political analyst Ashley Parker. Walk us through what happened, Julie.
It was such a stunning moment, Chris, and I'll play it for you in a moment, but I just want to lay out for our audience so they know the context of this. Sarah McBride, who, as you pointed out, the first transgender member of Congress ever, was elected in November, and since then she's faced an onslaught of moves just like the one that you're about to see from Congressman Keith Self of Texas. First, it was Nancy Mace, the Congresswoman of South Carolina, who made an effort, who led an effort, an all-out push to ban McBride from using the restroom of her choice on Capitol Hill. She really made a show of it. And then, of course, it was Speaker Johnson who introduced a new policy when he got the gavel in this Congress, a policy that didn't frankly exist before, to make it so that McBride and any other transgender member of Congress or anybody that is on Capitol Hill cannot use single-gender bathrooms or single-stall bathrooms in the Capitol anywhere near the House floor. So every time McBride needs to use the restroom during those long vote series, she has to walk all the way back to the House office buildings to be able to do so. And then we had that moment yesterday, the stunning, frankly, moment that happened in that House Foreign Affairs Subcommittee hearing between Keith Self, who's the Republican chairman, and McBride. Watch this.
I now recognize the representative from Delaware, Mr. McBride.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ranking Member Keating, also wonderful.
Mr. Chairman, could you repeat your introduction again, please?
Yes, we have set the standard on the floor of the House, and I'm simply...
What is that standard, Mr. Chairman? Would you repeat what you just said when you introduced a duly elected representative from the United States of America? Please.
I will. The representative from Delaware, Mr. McBride.
Mr. Chairman, you are out of order. Mr. Chairman, have you no decency? I mean, I've come to know you a little bit, but this is not decent.
We will continue this.
You will not continue it with me unless you introduce a duly elected representative the right way.
This hearing is adjourned.
A hearing just completely adjourning there after Congressman Keating, who is a Democrat, the ranking member, stood up for McBride, who, as you heard there, referred to Keith Self as thank you, Mrs. Chairwoman, as a play, of course, for misgendering her. I want to tell you, though, that McBride really has not responded to efforts to belittle her and to misgender her. She has focused instead on her work to represent the constituents in Delaware that she was elected to represent in November. She did respond, however, in a post to X, saying, no matter how I am treated by some colleagues, nothing diminishes my awe and gratitude at getting to represent Delaware in Congress. It is truly the honor and privilege of a lifetime. I simply want to serve and to try to make this world a better place. It's no secret, Chris, that outside of this moment, transgender issues have been a focal point. Republicans have used them in attack ads successfully, apparently, in order to win the trifecta of government that we saw in November, and have continued to do so, enforcing votes like banning boys from playing in women's sports, transgender men at that. That was a vote that happened in the House and in the Senate too, Chris.
So, Ashley, this moment, obviously, just the latest example of the political divide in our country. And, it does raise the question, how do Republicans and Democrats get anything done when things get so tense they can't even get through a hearing?
It's a good question. I mean, I just want to go back to, I was struck by the way Representative McBride initially handled it, because it was clear that she was not going to make a big deal of it or let it sort of shake her. She sort of jokingly misgendered him back and was prepared to move on until the Democratic ranking member intervened on her behalf. And I think that was one of the things to me that just made it such a stunning moment. You had the sense from her that this is something she deals with all the time, and she has defenses and humor and ways of handling it, because this wasn't a new moment to her. It didn't send her reeling. You see it send the Democratic ranking member reeling. There's a pause or two before he sort of realizes what he's heard. But to go back to your question, you're right. The country is incredibly divided, and that's what you're seeing on Capitol Hill right now. That's what you're seeing in the country. That's why even some of Trump's some people would call them bold, some people would call them catastrophic, but that there's so little even agreement on if his policies and what he's doing now are good or bad, because it's all really viewed through the lens of one's partisan and political sensibility.
Yeah, I should note that Sarah McBride said, because she was asked about this when she was running for office, that she was going to focus on the work, and she has done that, focused on the work. Imagine that, making a promise and keeping it after you get elected. But that's a conversation for another day. I want to talk about a different kind of division. The USDA has paused $29.78 million in federal funding to the University of Maine after President Trump publicly sparred with the Democratic governor there, Janet Mills, last month over the state's refusal to ban transgender athletes. Take a listen.
Is Maine here, the governor of Maine? Are you not going to comply with it?
I'm complying with state and federal laws.
Well, we are the federal law. Well, you better do it. You better do it because you're not going to get any federal funding at all if you don't. Your population doesn't want men playing in women's sports, so you better comply because otherwise you're not getting any federal funding.
See you in court.
Every state, good. I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one.
Well, the University of Maine student newspaper reports that this pause on funding actually will impact the state's farming and agriculture research for key products like potatoes, blueberry, salmon, and lobster. Maine provides 99% of the lobster in the United States, something crazy like that. It is the message to governors: defy Trump and you will suffer.
That's very clearly the message. That's the message to governors. That's basically been the message to anyone who has dared to challenge him, his political opponents, Republicans, Democrats during the campaign. He promised an administration full of revenge and retribution, and that's what he began doing with some of his executive orders on his very first day. In a public clash like that, it was very clear Trump was upset. He doesn't like being challenged. He certainly doesn't like being challenged in public, on top of that by a female governor, by a Democrat. But I think the thing to keep in mind here, you said, is the answer you cross me and you're punished? Yes, but when you look at who's actually getting punished with that funding being withheld, it's farmers, it's foresters, it's fishermen, it's people who are part of his base. And this is the one sign of trouble we're seeing for him across the board. It also applies to all the cuts that DOJ is making. That it may sound good, it may, in the instances of retribution, feel good, but it's hurting his base in many ways, and there could be potential political consequences for that.
Yeah, just to draw the line, the kind of research they do helps those farmers and fishermen, agriculture of all kinds, do their jobs better and more profitably. Julie Sirkin, Ashley Parker, thank you both. And